YouTube, this is Dan with SC Bushcraft. Come back with part 5 of our mental aspect of survival, true preparedness series. In this video, I want to talk about how we think about our survival kit, our survival gear. I want to start out by differentiating a survival kit from anything else, from our bushcraft outfit, camping gear, a bunch of supplies stored around your house. There's nothing wrong with having any of those things, but they're not a survival kit. There's some overlap, but they're not a survival kit. A survival kit by nature has everything in it you need to survive, and you can carry it on your back. And I'll explain why. When talking about your bushcraft outfit, myself, and I think most of the other people I've seen, when I practice bushcraft, I want to be challenged. I want to be in a situation where I'm learning, I'm trying my best to exploit the natural resources in my area. I don't want to have a bunch of extra things to make my life too easy, because that would hinder the learning experience, it would hinder the challenge, and it would hinder, it would defeat the purpose of practicing bushcraft. It would be no longer bushcraft, it would be camping. If I had everything that I needed and I wasn't trying to exploit the resources around me and I wasn't learning. And that's great to know those things. It's great to learn those skills, to hone those skills, to learn how to exploit the resources around you. But in a survival situation, you don't want to be challenged. You're already challenged enough because you're in a survival situation. It's life or death. You can't easily extract yourself from that situation. If something goes wrong, for whatever reason, your link to civilization has been cut off, and you might very well be in an unfamiliar area. That's another thing with bushcraft. It's easy when you're in an area that you've familiarized yourself with, you know where the resources are, and you're used to it, you feel at home. After you've done it for a while, you might be away from that comfort zone. There might be more people than just you need to care for. Once again, bushcraft is typically fairly a solitary thing. Or either that or you're doing it along with other people that know how to do it. When you got children, when you've got the elderly, when you've got people that are unable to contribute to providing for their own needs, finding the resources in nature is a lot more difficult. Eventually in a long-term situation, you are going to have to live off of the land, but you don't want to be thrust into that. You might be injured during whatever precipitates that survival situation. You might not be, you might not be yourself. So in a survival kit, I think it's important to have a lot of things that we wouldn't carry for bushcraft because we don't want a challenge. You're already challenged enough. As far as, just having stuff stocked up around your house, having food and water and prep type of goods around your house. There's nothing wrong with that, and I think it's a good idea, just the same as it's a good idea to study bushcraft skills. It's a good idea to have some water and some food and a well-stocked pantry and some things laid up. But where that departs from being a survival kit is that if you're ever separated from those things and you're depending solely on that for your survival, then you're out in the cold. You don't have a plan B. There could be a fire, there could be a flood, an earthquake, a tornado, a hurricane. In a broad sweeping situation, heaven forbid, there could be mobs of angry people that want to take that stuff away from you, and you've got the choice to either flee or be killed. You can't depend on what you can't take with you. And so, that would be my criteria for a survival kit. It has everything in it you need to survive, including food and water, within reason, as much as you could possibly carry, and as calorie dense as you can carry. Has everything in it that you need to survive, and you can carry it on your back. Now, also, I think that a survival kit should be comprised of durable gear and the right tools for the jobs that you need to do. And once again, that's as opposed to the minimalist approach, which I have nothing against, but when we're talking about survival, we don't want to be challenged again. You know, you don't want to have a one tool option knife that, you know, you're taking a risk of damaging that knife by processing all your wood with it. If it is a one tool option, it's probably too big for small tasks to be done safely and conveniently. You know, carry a real wood processing tool in your survival kit, at least a hatchet or something like that. Don't destroy your knife. You know, that survival situation could turn into more of a long-term thing than you think. Don't destroy your knife and burn calories by trying to baton all of your wood in a survival situation. You know, throw you a hatchet in there that's made to do that job and preserve your knife. And try your best to have at least, you know, one knife per person, if not two. If it's just you, at least have two. If there's more than you, you know, try to at least have one knife per person, so if someone's knife fails, you're not stuck without one. You know, and get a good quality hatchet. Make an investment in that. For 2 extra pounds, you can have a tool that's made to process wood. And a bow saw rather than a folding saw. A bow saw, you get a good bow saw for 10 bucks that doesn't even weigh a pound, and you can get blade replacements for $2 or $3. And that saw will cut wood all day long with a whole lot less calories than a little folding saw, and you can strap it to the outside of your pack and never know it's there. Shelter. You know, don't depend on an inadequate shelter because you're trying to save weight. Don't depend on your little 5x7 poncho or, you know, a contractor trash bag or something like that. Once again, if you're going to be out there for a while, you're going to want a shelter that's big enough for you to be comfortably shielded from the elements, that's durable enough that it's going to last more than a day or two, and especially if it's more than just you, you need a shelter that's big enough for everybody. But you know, even if it is just you, yeah, for bushcraft, you're challenging yourself, you know, it's you against the elements. 5x7 works out all right, barely. You know, you go and you can get you a 10x12 blue tarp from Walmart for next to nothing that will be an adequate covering for you and for everyone else, and that will last you within reason as long as any survival situation you might foreseeably be in would go on. And if there was a, you know, long-term civilization as we know it has come to an end situation, at least it would last you until you could tan hides and you could procure yourself something else durable. You know, and even if you could build natural shelters also, you might be in some sort of a situation where you don't want to be found. You know, once again, worst comes to worst and heaven forbid, and if you're building natural shelters, you can't take them with you. You're using massive amounts of calories, massive amounts of time, and you're leaving a trail of all those shelters that you've built for anyone to follow and know that somebody's gone that way. With a good, lightweight, cheap tarp, you can make a shelter in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, take it down in 5 or 10 minutes. You can roll it up and carry it with you, and you're not compounding your efforts like you are when you build natural shelters. That's another thing. Water carrying containers. No matter what anyone says, really in a bushcraft situation, if there's any kind of warm weather or anything like that, or you're exerting yourself, 1 quart of water is not enough. And if you're near a water source, you're always drinking hot water as you're boiling it and pouring it into your canteen, and that's no fun. But in a survival situation, 1 quart of water is definitely not enough. Try to have the means to at least carry 2-3 quarts or a gallon of water per person. You know, even if you've got kids and that's all they can carry, you know, get them a 2-quart canteen for them to carry, and try to get yourself, you know, at least a gallon worth of stainless containers that you can carry water in, you can also cook in, and that are multi-purpose. And don't be tied to water sources like that. In a survival situation, you don't want to be tied to a water source. You don't want to be depending on, well, I got a quart of water and I'm going to go out and find some more. Have enough water, you know, a gallon of water will sustain your life. If that's all you had and you rationed it for 4 days, you wouldn't be very comfortable. You'd get dehydrated. You wouldn't feel too great. But a gallon of water will sustain your life for at least 4 days if you rationed it. A quart of water will barely get you through a day. It will. The next day you're going to be feeling bad. If you don't have anything to drink in the morning, You know, and there's water sources available. You could find water and everything like that. Creeks dry up. There's droughts. Sometimes you just, you know, sometimes you have to travel. You're going to be in between. You know, don't stick with that 1 quart canteen, that canteen cup. It's inadequate for survival. Blankets. Don't trust a space blanket with your life. Just like the contractor trash bag or the poncho or anything like that. In a potentially long-term situation where you're already cold, you're already challenging yourself enough, wrap up in that space blanket, you get soaked with your own sweat, you get soaked with condensation, you're losing heat through conduction to the ground. You know, pack at least 1, if not 2, 100% wool blankets in your survival bag. You know, that's something that everyone can share. Unless you got an extremely large group, you'll be glad to share each other's warmth. And really, you know, my opinion is 2 blankets per adult. That's my opinion. But at least have something other than a space blanket or something like that, because that you will not be content with the performance of that. And also, you're tied down if you build natural shelters. That's another thing. If you're not bringing blankets, you're tied down to having a fire at night. And that's also just a beacon. If you didn't want to be found, it's a beacon to other people. You could build a small fire, you can cook your food, you can put it out, bury it in a hole, cover it with leaf mat, no one will ever know it's there. If you build a big enough fire to perform all of your warming needs, then you're going to have a big fire, especially if it's cold outside. If you don't have a blanket, an adequate shelter, you know, you're going to be building big fires. You're going to be spending a lot of calories getting wood. You're going to be leaving a trail behind you that you may or may not want to leave. You know, I'm not saying don't build fires, but there's some situations where you might not be able to build a fire, or you might not have time to build a fire. You might not want to build a fire. Ignition devices. You know, we'll move on to that. A ferro rod is an excellent, dependable source of ignition. If you have the time, the physical fitness, the strength to go out and find proper spark tinder. You know, you could carry some char cloth with you or something like that. But, you know, just a ferro rod by itself, you know, have some backup. Have a Bic lighter, you know, a real Bic lighter. Not one of the little square ones that conveniently fits into an Altoid tin. These are the only dependable lighters, these round, oval-shaped Bic lighters that I've ever found that will not leak. They've never malfunctioned. I've never had one of these lighters fail on me. The little cheap ones and the square ones seem to have a problem with leaking. They fail. You know, yeah, the flame's adjustable, but you know, those lighters like that, they've got an adequate flame. You don't need to adjust it. You know, carry a ferro rod, carry a lighter, and people will probably disagree with me on this. Carry some waterproof matches, because sometimes a match is the best way to start a fire. If you've got waterproof matches in a waterproof container, it is extremely convenient to start a fire with a match, especially for a lot of us that learned how to start fires with matches. Carry some Vaseline cotton balls. You know, you can put, or buy some of the mass-produced quick surefire tinder. You know, you could take a vitamin C bottle and you could put 30 soaked Vaseline cotton balls in it, and half of one of those, or just a pinch of one of those, is usually adequate to start you a fire. And once again, when I'm bushcrafting, I carry a fire steel. I want to challenge myself. If I can't find the means to start a fire, if I can't find proper tinder out in the woods laying around, then I'll shiver that night. You know, and I've learned how to start fires pretty much every single time with a ferro rod with what I can find around me. But once again, I'm not hungry, I'm not tired, I'm not dehydrated, I'm physically fit, and I'm out there doing it on purpose. I don't want to be challenged in a survival situation. I know it sounds like a broken record about that, but think it over. You know, it's you know, all the romanticism, all the stuff that's put out there, the media, and slick-tongued people can make anything sound fun. You know, there's movies out there that make war, prison, organized crime, poverty, all those things sound like fun. You know, if you think about it for a minute, every one of those things sucks. But people glorify and glamorize those things, and they've turned into you know, a romantic thing. The old way of living, you know, the Native American way, the Aboriginal way, the Long Hunter way of living has been romanticized and glamorized. Most of those people weren't really having very much fun, and that was a hard life. And plus, every one of those people had a tie to civilization. That whole group I just mentioned, the Aboriginals, Native Americans, the Long Hunters, they all had a tie to civilization. Native Americans had skilled tradespeople. They had sustained farming. They had a barter system. They weren't just out running around in the woods foraging alone. And you know, a lot of the ones that ended up in that situation ended up dying. You know, they knew how to live, they knew how to make fire and things like that. Not every single Native American knew how to make a bow. Most of them did. Not every single one did. You know, not every single one knew how to do every single thing they needed to do to survive. They had specialization just like we do. The Long Hunters would go out with pack mules, and they had 400 or 500 pounds of stuff they'd bring with them: flour and sugar and coffee and salt and bacon. They'd bring all that from civilization. They'd go out and they'd hunt and they'd eat the meat from the animals they killed for their pelts. When they ran out of flour, sugar, salt, coffee, bacon, and all that other stuff, maybe they run out of bacon, they could eat the animals they killed. But eventually they came back to civilization, they sold their furs, they bought more of that stuff. They weren't just walking around with a knife, a hatchet, and a rifle. That's romanticized BS. I'm not trying to be rude, you know, but get those ideas out of your head if you have those kind of ideas, and get real about it and realize that survival is not fun. It is not a test of your skills and your abilities. It's life or death. When you're in life or death, your goal is to live, no matter what you have to do. And better to be a live dog than a dead lion. You know, you don't want to try to prove yourself by having an inadequate survival kit or having, you know, inadequate survival ideas, and find out too late as you die of exposure that, you know, you wished you would have brought more. You know, I'm not trying to be mean, I'm not trying to pick on anybody. I just really want all of us to give this a long, serious mental overview and think about, can we really depend on the things that we're depending on? But anyway, I'm losing light here, so I better go. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.